The room was alive with laughter and bright lights, the stage polished to a mirror shine under the glare of 100 spotlights. Rows of people in tuxedos and shimmering gowns sat shoulder to shoulder, whispering jokes into each other's ears, while pretending to care about the expensive awards show they had come to watch. Backstage, the smell of perfume, hairspray, and nervous sweat mixed together like a strange soup. It was just another Hollywood night, but for Keanu Reeves, this night felt different. Keanu stood near a heavy curtain, half hidden from the crowd, his hands tucked deep in the pockets of his black suit. He watched the host, Chris Rock, as he prowled across the stage, microphone in hand, throwing jokes like knives at anyone who dared to look too serious. The audience roared with laughter every few seconds, hungry for the next punchline. Keanu had never liked these big shows. They reminded him how loud the world could be, how cruel the laughter felt when it was aimed at the softest part of someone's soul. He had come tonight only because his latest film was nominated, and his manager begged him to show up. He knew his fans liked seeing him at these things, the humble, quiet movie star who didn't seem to fit in with the glitter and noise. He took a deep breath, trying to push down the tight knot in his chest. He had gotten used to people making jokes about him. They called him the sad man of Hollywood. They whispered about his tragedies, his age, his grief that seemed to follow him like a silent shadow. He thought he was prepared for anything, but that was before Chris Rock turned his bright eyes on him, a grin spreading across his face like a shark who smelled blood. "You know who's here tonight?" Chris shouted, pointing to the side of the stage. The audience turned as one, eyes hunting for their next target. The one and only Keanu Reeves. Yeah, give it up for him. Look at him. He's still standing, still making movies. It's amazing, right? People clapped, a few whistled. Keanu felt his face flush as he forced a small smile. He nodded politely, hoping the spotlight would pass. But Chris was not finished. Come on, Chris laughed, pacing the stage. Keanu Reeves is what now, 100 years old. He's like the world's favorite sad grandpa. They keep calling him the immortal man. But bro, one more wrinkle and he'll need to star in The Mummy instead of John Wick. The room exploded with laughter. People leaned over their tables, slapping each other on the back. Cameras swung to catch Keanu's reaction. He could feel the heat of them burning into his skin. He tried to laugh along, his lips twitching into a smile that did not reach his eyes. Inside, something sharp twisted deep in his chest that it was not just the joke about his age. He could take that, but it was the way the laughter felt, empty, harsh, like it was mocking every loss he had carried quietly for so long. The death of his baby girl, the car accident that took his beloved Jennifer, the years he spent eating alone in diners at midnight so no one would see his sadness. He never used those things to gain sympathy. He never wanted people to feel sorry for him. But tonight, the laughter made him feel like a wound-on display. Keanu's fingers curled inside his pockets. Part of him wanted to walk away, to slip out the back door and disappear into the night like he always did. But then he heard a small voice in his mind, his mother's voice, gentle and strong, reading him verses from the old Bible she kept on her nightstand. "A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger." His mother taught him that when people throw stones, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stand still, open your hands, and speak with kindness. So when Chris Rock looked to the side of the stage and shouted, "Come on out here, Keanu. Don't be shy. Let's see how many gray hairs you really have." Keanu took a breath so deep it made his chest ache. He stepped through the curtain, blinking under the lights. The room erupted in applause and laughter again, some clapping, just to see how he would handle the joke. He walked slowly to the microphone Chris held out like a challenge. Chris smirked, clearly enjoying the moment, eyes twinkling with the power of having the whole room in his palm. Keanu looked at him, really looked at him, and then let his eyes drift over the audience. Faces bright and fake, some faces kind, some already waiting for the next cruel laugh. He could feel the weight of it pressing down on him, daring him to snap back, to defend himself with a joke just as sharp. Instead, he took the microphone gently from Chris' hand. He did not laugh. He did not glare. He just stood there, shoulders straight, the hush falling over the crowd like a blanket. "Thank you for the joke, Chris," Keanu said, his voice calm but strong enough to reach the far corners of the room. "You know, people love to talk about my age, how I've been around a long time. But tonight when you made fun of my wrinkles, it reminded me of something my mother used to say." He paused, looking down at the microphone for a moment as if searching for the right words in its silver surface. Then he lifted his eyes, and they shone with a light so steady it made Chris Rock's grin falter just a little. "She used to read me this verse," Keanu continued, his voice softer now, but every ear strained to hear him. "Isaiah 40 verse 31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run, and not be weary, and they shall walk, and not faint." The room fell silent. Some people shifted in their chairs, uncomfortable. Others leaned forward, as if they needed him to keep talking, to fill the space where laughter could not hide the truth anymore. Keanu's eyes moved back to Chris Rock. He offered a small, honest smile, not sharp, not cold, but gentle. "Every wrinkle I have," he said, "reminds me that I've lived, that I've survived nights that tried to break me, that I've walked through pain and come out the other side. So if growing old means I get to keep living, I'll take every line on my face and thank God for it." Chris Rock's mouth opened, but no joke came out. The audience stayed quiet for a heartbeat that felt like an eternity. Somewhere in the back, a woman began to clap, slow and uncertain. Then more hands joined in, until the whole room filled with applause that was softer than before. Not the roar of cruel laughter, but something warmer, something like respect. Keanu handed the microphone back, gave a small nod, and turned away from the stage lights that made his eyes burn. He did not wait for more applause. He did not soak in the moment. He just slipped backstage, heart pounding, shoulders heavy, but lifted by a quiet strength. Behind him, the laughter did not return so quickly. Behind him, the people at their tables wondered what it meant to carry pain with humility, to answer mockery with kindness, to stand alone in a bright room and still hold onto the light inside. And for the first time that night, Keanu felt no shame for the lines on his face. Each one was proof he was still here, still running, still walking, still not fainting. The backstage hallway smelled of sweat, cheap coffee, and leftover perfume. As soon as Keanu stepped out of the spotlight, the noise behind him seemed to fade like a storm moving further out to sea. He could still feel the weight of the crowd's eyes, the echo of that soft applause clinging to him like a second skin. The knot in his chest loosened, but it did not disappear. He kept hearing his own voice repeating the verse in his mind, like a soft shield against the sting of that laughter. He found a quiet corner near a stack of black storage crates, leaned against the cold wall, and exhaled. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling the strands stick to his sweaty forehead. Part of him wondered if he had done the right thing. Maybe he should have laughed along with the joke, played it off with a wink like every other actor would have. But then he remembered the faces in the crowd, the few that softened when he spoke. Maybe someone out there needed to hear that verse tonight, just like he needed to say it. A young production assistant hurried past, his headset crackling. He stopped when he saw Keanu, eyes wide with awe. "Hey, Mr. Reeves. I just wanted to say that was really brave, what you said out there." The kid's hands trembled around his clipboard. Keanu gave him a small smile, the kind that made people feel seen. "Thank you," he said. "What's your name?" "Aaron." "Thank you." "Aaron," Keanu repeated, his voice calm. "Did you like the show?" Aaron laughed awkwardly, glancing over his shoulder honestly. "I thought it was kind of mean, but what you said, it made people quiet. In a good way." Keanu nodded. "Sometimes the world is loud. Sometimes you need to be quiet to hear what really matters." Aaron stood there for another second, like he wanted to say more. But someone called his name through his headset, and he gave a small wave before rushing off. Keanu pushed himself away from the wall. He still had an interview to do in the green room. The producers expected him to smile, pose for photos, shake hands with people who barely remembered his name until they needed him on a poster. It all felt so heavy, but he knew he could not just slip away. He walked down the long hallway, past mirrors lined with bulbs that made him look older, each wrinkle casting tiny shadows across his face. In the green room, a young reporter was waiting for him with a cameraman. She had bright red lipstick, a sparkling dress, and a grin that seemed stuck on her face even when her eyes flickered with nerves. When Keanu walked in, she straightened her notes, cleared her throat, and gestured for him to sit. "Hi Keanu, I'm Marissa," she said, her voice chipper, the fake warmth easy to hear. "Wow, quite a moment out there tonight. Do you mind if we talk about it?" Keanu settled into the chair opposite her, crossing his legs, his hands folded. In his lap, "Sure, Marissa. Ask anything you'd like." The cameraman counted down. The red light blinked on. Marissa leaned forward, her voice low but curious. "So, you responded to Chris Rock's joke about your age with a Bible verse. That's not something we hear every day at an awards show. What made you do that?" Keanu looked past the camera. For a second, gathering his thoughts. "My mother taught me when I was a boy that words are powerful. Jokes can be harmless, but sometimes they cut deeper than we see. I think, when you stand on a stage and laugh at someone's scars, you forget they're human." Marissa's smile softened, the grin fading into something more real. "Did it hurt you, what he said?" Keanu shrugged, a small, tired laugh escaping his chest. "We all get older. I don't mind the jokes about my wrinkles, but I mind if we forget what those wrinkles mean. They mean I survived. They mean I've seen dark nights and brighter mornings. They mean I'm still here." He paused, glancing at his hands, the veins and lines that told stories no camera ever showed. Maybe someone watching tonight feels like they're too old, too tired, too broken. Maybe they needed to hear that verse, that there's strength waiting for them if they hold on. Marissa's eyes glistened for a moment, but she blinked it away. "Do you think Chris Rock went too far?" Keanu shook his head slowly. "He's a comedian. That's his job. But maybe tonight reminded us all that not every laugh heals. Sometimes kindness does more." The cameraman signaled they were done. Marissa leaned back, her smile returning, but warmer now, less plastic. "Thank you, Keanu. Really." He stood, shook her hand gently, and left the green room, weaving through a crowd of people who gave him polite nods, but did not meet his eyes. He did not blame them. It was easier to laugh than to look at your own pain in someone else's story. Outside the backstage exit, a cold breeze hit his face. The limo was waiting, its engine humming, the driver standing by the door. But Keanu did not get in right away. He stood on the curb, hands deep in his pockets, eyes lifted to the night sky. For a moment, he felt something shift inside him, not anger, not pride, but a quiet sense of peace. He could have fought back with a joke. He could have humiliated Chris on stage, but instead, he gave them a truth that would echo longer than laughter. He thought of the people in the crowd who did not clap, whose eyes filled with tears they could not explain. Maybe they carried their own scars. Maybe they needed permission to wear them with pride. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, seeing an old message from a friend he had not spoken to in months. Just for words. "Thank you for that." Keanu smiled, tucking the phone away. He stepped into the limo, the door closing with a soft thud that felt more like a promise than an ending. The city lights blurred past the window as he rode away, each street lamp a small sun burning in the darkness, reminding him that light does not shout, it simply shines. The night after the awards show, the clip of Keanu's quiet reply spread faster than any joke that was told on that shiny stage. People shared it online with words like "This is what grace looks like," and "Real strength has no age." Fans clipped the moment into short videos, adding soft piano music in captions that made strangers stop scrolling just to listen. Some people laughed it off, saying he was too serious. Others, though, seemed to cling to his words like a lifeline. He didn't see all the comments, but he felt the echo of them when he went out the next morning. People looked at him differently. Some gave him a nod. Some just smiled, as if they knew something about him now that they hadn't seen before. Keanu never cared for being the center of attention, but he understood something about moments like this. They weren't really about him. They were about everyone who felt small. when the world tried to make them feel ashamed of the years written on their faces. He spent that morning at a small cafe he liked, tucked away from the noisy parts of town. He ordered black coffee and sat by the window, watching people rush past with their lives tucked under their arms. For a while, he just sat there, letting the steam from the mug warm his hands. Then he saw a woman standing outside the cafe door. She looked maybe 50, her coat too thin for the cold. She was holding a phone in her hand, staring at it like it was made of fire. When she looked up and saw him, her eyes went wide. She hesitated, then pushed open the door. Keanu looked up and gave her that soft, patient smile he always offered to strangers who came near him. "Hello," he said. Her lips trembled. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to bother you. I saw what you said last night." He gestured to the seat across from him. "You're not bothering me at all. Would you like to sit?" She sank into the chair, her hands still gripping her phone like it was a lifeline. "My name's Linda," she said, her voice thin. "I just wanted to tell you, I've been afraid of getting old my whole life. My husband left me last year, said he didn't want to be stuck with a woman who was turning into her mother." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back fiercely. "I felt like my wrinkles were proof I was worth less every day." Keanu listened, really listened, nodding slowly. "You're not worth less," he said softly. "The lines on your face are proof you've lived. They're proof you've loved, cried, laughed, and survived things that could have broken you." Linda let out a shaky breath, pressing her palm to her chest. "When you said that verse, it felt like you were talking to me." "Maybe I was," he said. "Maybe you needed it more than I did." They sat for a while, the small cafe noise buzzing around them, the hiss of milk steaming, the clink of cups on saucers. Keanu did not rush her. He did not tell her to stop crying when she did. He just sat there, a quiet anchor in the middle of her storm. When she finally stood to leave, she looked stronger, her shoulders a little straighter. "Thank you," she said. "I don't feel so old today." "Good," he said with a small nod. "Go live today like it's brand new." When she walked out, Keanu turned back to his coffee. The warmth had faded, but he didn't mind. Some moments were worth the chill. He pulled out his phone and saw new messages. One was from his old friend, Marco, a stuntman he had known for years. "Hey, old man." The message read, "When did you get so wise?" Keanu laughed under his breath. He typed back, "Always been old." Just learning how to say it out loud. The rest of the day passed quietly. He took his bike for a ride up the hills, the wind tugging at his hair, the roar of the engine drowning out the hum of the world's opinions. He liked it best when it was just the road and his thoughts. No flashing cameras, no microphones, no stage lights, but the world had a way of following him, even up there in the quiet. When he stopped at a scenic overlook, a young guy stood nearby, leaning on the railing, a skateboard at his feet. His hoodie was pulled low over his face, but his eyes flicked up when he saw Keanu. "Hey man," the kid said, voice rough like. He hadn't spoken to anyone all day. "You're that guy from last night, right?" Keanu pulled off his helmet, wiping sweat from his brow. "Guess I am." The kid kicked at the ground with his shoe. "My dad always told me crying makes you weak," he said. "Real men don't talk about God or pain or any of that." Keanu leaned against his bike, the metal frame warm from the ride. "What do you think?" The kid shrugged. "I think he's wrong. I just didn't know how to say it." Keanu nodded. "It takes strength to feel things, to talk about them. The verse I shared last night. It's not just about waiting, it's about letting yourself be lifted when you're too tired to stand." The kid looked away, but not before Keanu saw the tears he tried to hide. "Thanks, man," he mumbled. "Guess old Jude's still got something to teach us." Keanu smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening like rivers carved by time. "If I'm lucky, I'll keep getting older, and if I'm really lucky, I'll never stop learning." He got back on his bike, the engine rumbling under him like a promise. As he rode away, he looked in his mirror one last time, the kid standing there, skateboard under his arm, head lifted a little higher than before. In the wind and the rush of the road, Keanu felt something he had not felt in a long time. That may be all the pain, the loss, the quiet nights he spent wondering why he was Still here, all of it was leading him to these moments. Not the bright stages or the trophies that gathered dust on shelves, but the small spaces where he could remind one broken soul that they still mattered, and maybe that was enough. Days turned into a quiet week. The moment at the awards show was still drifting through news feeds and gossip shows. But for Keanu, life went on the way it always did, simple, quiet, almost invisible to the crowds that loved to stare when he stepped into the light. He spent more time riding his motorcycle up the coast. The cold wind made his eyes water, but it felt good, like it washed away the stale air of fame and spotlight. He stayed in small motels by the sea, ate in diners where no one asked for selfies. He liked the silence, the taste of hot coffee and cracked mugs, the strangers who did not care who he was. They just saw him, a man with lines on his face, a soft smile, and a kindness that needed no name. But the world was not done with him yet. One night, he stopped at a tiny bookstore, the kind with creaky floors and shelves that leaned like tired old men. The bell above the door tinkled when he walked in. The owner looked up from her counter, an old woman with silver hair tied in a bun. Her eyes widened when she saw him, but she did not rush for an autograph. Instead, she just nodded politely and went back to her book. Keanu drifted through the aisles, his fingers brushing the spines of books he had read as a boy, stories that had kept him company when the world felt too cruel to bear. In a corner, near a dusty window, he spotted a thin, pale boy sitting on the floor. The boy's coat was torn at the sleeve, his shoes too big, laces frayed. He was reading an old Bible, its pages yellowed and dog-eared. Keanu paused. The boy looked up, startled. His eyes were sharp but tired, too old for his skinny face. "You like that one?" Keanu asked, crouching down beside him. The boy shrugged. "It's just words. My mom used to read it to me when she was still here." Keanu's heart pinched. He sat down on the floor, cross-legged, ignoring the cold seeping through his jeans. "I know what that feels like," he said. "My mom. Read to me too. My favorite verse is the one I said on stage last week." The boy's eyes widened a little. "That was you? I saw it on my phone. You're the guy who told the joke man about God." Keanu chuckled softly, something like that. The boy traced his finger along a line in the book. "My dad says this stuff doesn't work. He says life is what it is. You just get old and die." Keanu nodded slowly. "Some people think that. But I think the Bible says we don't just get old, we grow. Our bodies change. But inside, something bigger is being made. The pain. The hard days. They're not wasted." The boy's eyes glistened, but he blinked it away, pressing his dirty sleeve to his face. "My dad left last year. My mom got sick. I don't know why she had to go. I prayed, but it didn't work." Keanu took a slow breath. "I'm sorry about your mom. I really am. Sometimes prayers don't fix things the way we want. Sometimes they just keep us standing when everything tries to knock us down." The boy closed the book, hugging it to his chest. "You think she's okay now?" Keanu looked out the window at the streetlights flickering in the dark. "I think she's somewhere you can't see, but she's close. I think every time you feel love, that's her. Every time you're strong when you wanted a break, that's her too." The boy sniffed. "People make fun of me when I talk about God. They say I'm stupid." Keanu smiled, his eyes soft. "Sometimes people laugh when they don't understand something bigger than themselves. But faith is not about being loud. It's about being steady." They sat like that for a while, the boy leaning against the shelves, Keanu watching the world go by through dusty glass. Before he stood to leave, he reached into his pocket and pulled out enough cash for the boy to buy the book. He pressed it into his small hand. "Keep it," he said. "When you feel alone, read that verse. Isaiah 40:31. It's not magic, but it might help you remember you're stronger than you think." The boy nodded, clutching the Bible so tight his knuckles turned white. "Thank you, mister." Keanu ruffled his hair gently. "Stay strong, kid." Outside, the night was cold again, but his heart felt warm. He did not think of the cameras or the people who would twist his quiet words into headlines. He thought of the boy's eyes, tired, but still searching for something good. He thought of the woman in the cafe, the boy with the skateboard, The quiet claps in a room full of cruel laughter. The next day, Keanu went back to the same cafe. The owner smiled when she saw him, sliding a fresh mug of black coffee across the counter. "That seat's yours now," she said. He settled by the window. The same old seat that felt like a friend. As he sipped his coffee, he saw a text pop up from a number he did not recognize. "Hi, I saw the clip. You don't know me, but your verse helped me not give up last night. I just wanted to say thank you." He closed his eyes, letting the warmth sink into his bones. He knew he could not save everyone. He knew jokes and cruel words would come again. But maybe, just maybe, a soft answer really could turn away wrath, not just on a stage, but in every hidden corner where pain waited for a voice that would not judge or shout, but simply stay. And for Keanu, that was enough to keep standing. A few weeks passed, and the world moved on, the way it always does. The clips stopped trending. New headlines replaced the old ones. Chris Rock's joke became old news, buried under fresh scandals and gossip. But for Keanu, the echo of that night stayed alive, not as a wound but as a reminder. One rainy morning, he sat on the steps of a community church on the east side of town. He had no big movie meetings that day, no red carpets waiting for him. He liked it that way. The cold wind brushed against his face, making him feel awake, real. He watched people hurry by with umbrellas and soaked shoes. Most of them did not even notice him, a man in a worn black hoodie, jeans, and old boots. Inside the church, volunteers were setting up tables for the free breakfast they hosted every Sunday. People who had nowhere else to go lined up under the awning, some with shopping carts, others with backpacks stuffed with all they owned. Keanu sipped his coffee, waiting for a friend he had promised to meet there. The wooden door creaked open. Margaret, the church coordinator, stepped out, her gray hair tucked under a wear-upon cap. She was tough, the kind of woman who could quiet a room with a look but would give her last blanket to someone shivering. "You showed up," she said, her eyes twinkling as she sat down beside him. "You knew I would," Keanu said with a soft smile. "I brought the extra coats too." Margaret nudged him playfully. "Movie stars bringing coats to the homeless. You know they'll put that in the papers, right? Let them." He shrugged. "People should know we're all human." They sat in the quiet for a moment, listening to the hum of rain hitting the old church roof. Margaret watched him carefully, as if reading lines on his face like scripture. "That night on TV, what you said about age, about the verse, it meant something," she said. "People still talk about it here." Keanu let out a slow breath. It wasn't planned. It just needed to be said. Margaret nodded. Sometimes the Holy Spirit doesn't wait for permission. Inside, the line moved slowly. People found seats, warming their hands around cheap styrofoam cups of coffee, the smell of scrambled eggs and toast filling the air. Keanu stood up and grabbed a tray, moving behind the table to help serve. Nobody in that room cared he was famous. To them, he was just another pair of hands, another gentle smile handing them a meal without judgment. Near the end of the line, an old man shuffled forward, shoulders hunched under a soaked brown coat. His beard was wild, eyes sharp but clouded with sadness. He stopped in front of Keanu, peering at him as if trying to match the lines on his face with the image of someone he'd seen on TV. "You're that actor," the man rasped. "The one who talked about God." Keanu gave a small nod. "That's me," the old man snorted, looking down at his tray. "Never thought I'd see the day some movie star quoting the Bible would feed me breakfast." Keanu picked up a piece of toast, laying it gently next to the scrambled eggs. "Guess we're both surprised." The man stared at him, eyes watery. "My wife used to read that verse to me. When she got sick, she'd say it over and over. I didn't believe it then. Thought it was just words. But you said it like you believed it." Keanu's throat tightened. "Maybe because I do. It's helped me keep walking when I wanted to stop." The man nodded slowly. "You think people like us, old, beat up, broken, you think we really get new strength?" Keanu met his eyes, steady and kind. "Yes, not because we're strong on our own, because grace is bigger than the years written on our skin." The man sniffed, clutching his tray like it was the only solid thing he had left. "Thank you, son." Keanu wanted to say you're welcome, but the words felt too small. Instead, he reached across the table and gently squeezed the man's hand. No cameras, no bright lights, just two people with stories etched into their bones, sharing a moment no joke could steal. When the last plate was washed and the last person shuffled out into the drizzle, Margaret found Keanu outside, sitting on the church steps again. The same cup of coffee now cold in his hands. Funny thing about you, Margaret said, pulling her coat tighter. People think you're here to save them, but I think maybe they're saving you too. Keanu looked out at the wet street, a faint smile playing on his lips. Maybe that's how it works. We lift each other, one soft answer at a time. He stood, brushing rain from his hair. Margaret hugged him tight, her small frame surprisingly strong. Go home, old man, she teased. Your wrinkles need rest. He laughed, the sound warm and unguarded. Tell that to the next comedian. As he walked away, his boots splashing through puddles, he felt the cold sink into his bones, but it did not scare him. Every line on his face, every gray hair, every soft word he chose instead of anger was proof he was still living, still waiting on strength that never truly ran dry. And somewhere in the city, maybe someone else would remember those words the next time the world tried to make them feel small. Weeks passed, and the cold city slowly opened up to spring. Small flowers pushed through cracks in the sidewalk. People who once hunched against the wind now lifted their faces to the shy sun. Life was moving forward, as it always does, but for Keanu, every day felt like another chance to make the quiet moments count. He found himself back at the same little cafe, the one with the steamed windows and the seat by the glass that felt like home. The old barista, a woman named June, had his coffee ready before he even asked. You're predictable. Keanu, she teased, sliding the warm mug across the counter. Predictable is good, he said, his smile soft and patient. Predictable means you're still here. He took his seat and pulled out a notebook, pages filled with scribbles and pieces of thoughts that never quite turned into a speech or a script. These were his real stories, moments he wanted to remember when the world tried to drown them out with noise. As he sipped his coffee, he thought about Linda, the woman who told him she didn't feel so old anymore. He thought about the kid with the skateboard who wiped his tears under the city lights, the boy in the bookstore, hugging the old Bible like a shield, the old man in the soup line who clutched his tray as if it held a promise. He knew his words didn't fix everything. They didn't erase grief or keep the cold from sneaking in when nights grew long. But maybe they planted seeds. Maybe one verse, whispered in a moment of mockery, could grow into a reminder for someone else. That pain could be shared, that age was a crown, not a curse. And that strength was not found in shouting, but in staying soft when the world tried to harden you. His thoughts drifted to Chris Rock. He hadn't spoken to him since that night on stage. There were stories on gossip sites that they were feuding, but the truth was simple. There was no fight. Keanu knew that comedians poked where it hurt. It was their job to find the soft spot and press on it until laughter covered up the sting. But maybe, just maybe, his quiet answer had planted something in Chris. The bell above the cafe door jingled, pulling Keanu from his thoughts. He looked up and froze, surprised to see Chris Rock standing there, sunglasses pushed up on his head, his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. He looked different tonight, not the sharp stage predator with the flashing grin, but a man who seemed tired in the eyes. Mind if I sit? Chris asked, his voice low. Keanu gestured to the chair across from him. It's warm here. Chris slid into the seat, his hands fidgeting with a packet of sugar. The silence stretched between them until Chris finally cleared his throat. I owe you an apology, he said. I didn't think it would hit you like that. I've been doing this so long, sometimes I forget there's a real person behind the joke. Keanu nodded slowly. I know, it's easy to forget when the lights are bright. Chris met his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, he looked unsure. I watched that clip back, you quoting that Bible verse. I didn't get it at first, but then I did. Keanu sipped his coffee, letting the warmth settle the chill in his chest. What did you get? Chris let out a shaky laugh. That. You're stronger than me, man. You could have burned me on stage. You didn't. You gave me grace. Nobody does that anymore. Keanu smiled, a real one, soft and forgiving. We're all trying, Chris. Sometimes we get it wrong. The only thing that matters is if we keep trying to get it right. The two men sat there, just a people with laughter and scars between them. No spotlight, no audience waiting to clap. After a while, Chris stood and stuck out his hand. Keanu took it, their fingers closing in a grip that said more than any joke ever could. Next time, Chris said, maybe I'll use my words to lift someone up. Next time, Keanu agreed. When Chris left, the cafe felt brighter. The streetlights outside flickered, warm against the early evening dusk. Keanu looked down at his notebook. He wrote for words at the top of a blank page. Soft answers save lives. He closed the book, tucking it into his coat pocket like a secret worth keeping. As he stepped outside, the air was crisp but not biting. A young couple walked past, laughing about nothing. An old man swept his shop steps with slow care. Everything looked ordinary. But Keanu knew the truth. The ordinary moments were where the real miracles lived. He turned his face up to the sky. A line from that old verse drifted through his mind like a promise. They shall run, and not be weary. They shall walk, and not faint. He touched the lines on his face with the back of his hand. Each one a mile he had walked when his legs wanted to give out. Each one a testament that he was still here, still standing, still finding ways to answer pain with kindness instead of anger. And as he disappeared into the gentle hush of the city, Keanu Reeves reminded himself, and everyone watching, that respect, humility, resilience, and kindness would always be stronger than a cruel laugh. In a world that forgets how soft words heal, he chose to speak them anyway. And for him, that was enough.